United States Senator John Kennedy. Geez, I need more sleep. Kennedy is back. Hey, Mr. John, welcome back to Keel. Let's start with...
Senator, I want to know about this. The House in Louisiana taking up a bill moving $200 million of the $1.8 billion CARE Act that is aimed at small businesses, and they're moving it to small business grants. Does that get your panties in a bunch?
No.
You're okay with that?
Yeah. Under our state constitution, all money spent by the state has to be appropriated by the legislature. I'll give you an example. When I was state treasurer, if I had filed a lawsuit to protect Louisiana citizens and I received money for it into the Department of Treasury, I couldn't just go spend it. I'd have to go to the money's turned over to the legislature, and the legislature decides how it's spent. So when the legislature exercises its authority, it's doing so on a state constitutional basis. Number two, there's nothing in the CARES Act, which is the statute we passed in Congress providing the money, that says how states or cities are supposed to spend it, or who's supposed to make the decisions.
But 45% of it was targeted for local and parish governments, and with this change,
no, it wasn't.
That's not right? Okay.
No, that's not right. Sorry to interrupt, but
please do.
The legislation just says the money goes to. We did it by formula. Louisiana received $1.8 billion that went directly to the state to use however it wants, as long as it's related to the coronavirus. I sit on the appropriations committee, so I made sure we got our fair share. We sent $300 million to our public schools in Louisiana. We sent $200 million to our universities. We sent over $1 billion to our hospitals. We sent extra Medicaid money. But all of that money, except the money appropriated to, or given to a private hospital, has to be appropriated by the legislature. And I think the 45% that is floating around, the governor said he would like to send 45% of money to local government.
Okay.
And he's made that preference known, of course, and I think he's opposing the bill. But it's ultimately up to the legislature. They can decide what to do with the money as long as it's related to the coronavirus.
Speaking of money, Mr. John, there's a second bill, I guess, in the pipeline. Is there? You said a couple of weeks ago to us you were leery of a second stimulus, of a second printing of money to throw around. I don't mean to use that term loosely, to distribute across the country. What are your feelings now? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I don't know. Short answer is, Robert, I don't know. Speaker Pelosi, the only thing I know is her bill isn't going to pass. Speaker Pelosi's bill is not a coronavirus bill. It's a remake American Society bill. It deals with all sorts of non-coronavirus issues. She wants to rewrite the immigration laws. She wants to have the federal government take over our elections. She wants to let federal prisoners go. She wants to change the marijuana laws. Her bill would cost $3 trillion. That's 3,000,000,000,000,000,000,000 taxpayer dollars. We'd have to borrow every penny. It's got about as much chance of passing the Senate as my son has of getting a Porsche for his birthday.
But
I'll put it that way.
But there does seem to be. Well, you tell me. Is there a will among legislators on both sides to do one more thing?
Not yet in the Senate. I can't. Well, the House, of course, does whatever Speaker Pelosi. The Democrats in the House do whatever Speaker Pelosi tells them to do. But in the Senate, to do another bill, there has to be 60 votes, and I don't think that there is a 60-vote consensus to do anything. One of the issues is, do we give more money to state and federal government? Now, I will tell you, Louisiana, the states have already received a ton, and local governments, a lot of money. Louisiana received $3.5 billion, and that's on top of the, $9 billion that we sent to our small businesses and the stimulus checks and all of that. You just notice that the legislature passed a budget with very few cuts to its budget, and they could do that because they used the federal money that we sent to them.
Speaking of,
so
go ahead.
Will there be more federal money for states and cities? I don't know yet.
Speaking of monies going to the states, it was Governor Cuomo in New York. It may have been yesterday, maybe the day before. He basically said, I can't see how we could reopen the economy in the state of New York without lots more federal aid. Do you feel like the governor of New York is holding his own people hostage at this point and holding them up in front of the Congress for more assistance?
Well, here's what I think. I think that the government has asked the American people and the people of Louisiana to really sacrifice. A lot of folks have lost their jobs because they had to stay home. People have we're in a pool of misery. I think states and local governments need to share in the sacrifice. I think every state and every local government should have to scrub its budget. Number two, I'll give you an example of why this is controversial. Let's take the state of Illinois. The state of Illinois, the governor there happens to be a Democrat. He has laid off no state employees. Now, I mean, that's a good thing. I don't want anybody to lose their jobs. But he also wants to give all state employees a big pay raise. And he wants us to appropriate the money to do that. Well, when we got people in the retail business and the restaurant business who don't have jobs to go back to, that's a pretty big pill to swallow. And so everybody's got to be reasonable here and share in the sacrifice. And I can't see the United States Congress, at least the Senate, giving the governor of Illinois taxpayer money to give a pay raise in the middle of the coronavirus when we've got millions of Americans who have lost their jobs.
Senator Kennedy, I'm quoting from your Facebook page. Since the Chinese Communist Party isn't going to watch out for American investors and their savings, Congress has to. How? What can Congress do to fix this?
Well, you've got to distinguish first, as you just did, Aaron, between the people of China who are. I've been to China several times. So I love the people of China. They're smart. They're hardworking. They're friendly. But the Communist Party of China, which rules them, is largely populated with thugs. And as I've said before, you can't trust them. I wouldn't turn my back on the Communist Party of China if they were in the ground and 2 days dead. They'll steal the hair off your head.
So what action can Congress take to fix that, to make it better?
Well, here's an example. If everybody wants to list their stock on an American stock exchange for reasons I'll be glad to go into. We have a rule that if you want to list your stock on an American stock exchange, you have to be audited, and the SEC gets to review your audit to make sure you're not lying about your profits and you're not trying to swindle the American people and others who buy stock on our exchanges. Every country abides by that. American companies, Malaysian companies, Turkmenistan companies, all companies except Chinese state-owned companies. They refuse to do it. You know what our SEC has done about that? Nothing. And what you allow is what will continue. I just passed a bill unanimously in the Senate that said, look, if you don't want to have your audits reviewed by the SEC, carry your happy rear end to another stock exchange because you're not going to list in America.
So you're going to boot them off the stock
Now,
exchange. That's the number one
Yeah.
priority. Okay.
Not immediately. We're going to give them a fair opportunity once again to let us review their audits. But there have been many instances. The last one was with a group, a large coffee house company like the Chinese Starbucks, where they just lied about their revenues, and people bought their stock. And when the truth became known, a lot of Americans lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm not asking the Communist Party there to do anything extra. They just have to follow the rules that everybody else follows, and if you don't, get off our stock exchange. Weakness invites the wolves. You've heard me say that before.
Mm-hmm.
If you just allow the Communist Party there to take advantage of it, hey, they're going to take advantage of us.